But what if you're a Bitcoin maximalist or would rather spend your time zooming in on the big daddy of cryptocurrencies? Well, I think my next podcast will be right up your street. My next recommended crypto podcast has got to be What Bitcoin Did. Now, this show is brought to us by Peter McCormack, and this chap doesn't claim to be a tech wizard or expert economist, but after a single episode, it should be abundantly clear that he does know a heck of a lot about Bitcoin. The podcast essentially consists of Peter chatting with some of the smartest minds in crypto about, well, you guessed it, Bitcoin. 3 or 4 episodes come out a week, perfect for those like me who love to wheeze their way around the gym every day. Now, this certainly isn't the type of podcast for those with ADHD. Episodes are usually at least an hour and can run for much longer. What I personally find super impressive about What Bitcoin Did is how the podcast manages to appeal to both people with a passing interest in Bitcoin and crypto veterans too. Not an easy tightrope to walk. To give you a flavour of what is on offer at this show, one recent episode revolved around a super interesting discussion about current global macroeconomics and the threat of hyperinflation. Themes explored included the long-term debt cycle, commodities markets, current and historical inflation rates, the guest's investment thesis in this environment, the pros and cons of Bitcoin ETFs, and Bitcoin price predictions. So yeah, certainly the type of episode that appeals to those wanting to brush up on their economics. Then you have several recent episodes telling you the ins and outs of what's happening in regards to Bitcoin adoption in El Salvador. One episode that springs to mind is a discussion with Aaron van Veerdam, the editor-in-chief at Bitcoin Magazine. In it, the chaps discuss the Bitcoin adoption rollout in El Salvador, the role of the Chivo app, what El Salvadoran banks think about all this, the benefits of adoption, and much more. Speaking of El Salvador, Peter also interviewed the man, the legend himself, Nayib Bukele, the president of the country. They went into an in-depth discussion of why the country decided to adopt Bitcoin as a legal tender. Well worth a listen. Those who love data and metrics are also well served here too, with a recent interview featuring none other than on-chain analyst Willy Woo. That episode included discussions on the impact of Bitcoin ETFs on the market, cycle maximalism, cash and carry trades, long-term holding patterns, changing date and glassnode metrics, and more. Some episodes also debate crypto-related legislation, such as the US infrastructure bill earlier this year. Now yes, at face value, that seemed to have nothing to do with crypto unless you actually read the 2,000-page document outlining how the government intended to fund that $1 trillion investment infrastructure.